So hello there and good evening if you're watching. Welcome to the first of our digital MEU sessions. My name is Rhys Nugent. I'm an organizer for Model European Union Strasbourg 2020, and it's very exciting for me to be joined by a variety of organizers from the ME world today to discuss the concept of Model European Union and to discuss its impact, or the COVID-19 impact rather, on our conferences. So this is only one of the first sessions we'll be doing. So if you're curious about digital MEU sessions, make sure to keep an eye out on our social media in the future. So as aforementioned, I'm Rhys, but who are these wonderful organizers who are joining me today for this session? Well, let's find out. So I'd like you all to introduce yourselves, and thank you very much for being here. If you can just tell us a bit about yourself and what your relationship is with Model European Union, that would be great. Casper, if you'd like to begin.
Hey, I'm Casper, and I've been doing MEU since 2016. And I'm also one of the co-founders of the MEU in the Netherlands, which we have been organizing since last year. And apart from that, MEUs have also inspired me to get involved into actual politics, or not precisely MEUs, but simulations of the European Union, which I started with even in high school before I started doing the MEUs. As I'm also now active in the local politics in my city council.
Thank you very much, Casper, and thank you for joining us. Next, we have Andrea, if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you, Rhys. Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a PhD candidate in law and data protection from Romania. I've been involved with MEUs for, I think, 4 or 5 years now, and I have participated in over 20 such conferences. The latest one being MEU Iași that took place earlier this year in March in Romania. Thank you very much for inviting me to this webinar. I find it really relevant in these times of uncertainty, as the pandemic has hit very hard different aspects of our lives, and I'm really looking forward to the discussions we're going to have today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us once again. Next, Gary, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, thanks Rhys, and thanks to the MEU Strasbourg team for putting on this series of activities. So my name is Gary Patterson. I am the president of Beta Europe. So Beta Europe is the federal level organisation which represents all of the MEUs and the MEU branches. My own personal involvement with MEUs actually was at MEU Strasbourg in 2014. I've attended several MEUs as a participant, as an organiser, as a commissioner. I was actually going to be doing some chairing this year, but apparently that won't be happening now. MEUs have really had a massive impact on my life. I was always very interested in European politics, but there was not always a way to get involved in it nationally. And MEU Strasbourg was something that was able to inspire me and give me this kind of education and experience of how European politics and decision making works. So off the back of attending those MEUs, particularly MEU Strasbourg, I established Model European Union Scotland, which was based in Glasgow and Edinburgh over 3 years. And that activity has inspired me to be involved in politics in general and doing politics.
That's great. Thank you very much for joining us, Gary. Isabel, if you don't mind going next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks to everyone joining us today. I'm Isabel. I'm coming from Romania, but I'm living in Austria. I will soon be a law graduate, and I'm the vice president of MEU Vienna currently. I fell helplessly in love with MEUs during MEU Vienna 2019, and I have spent a biggest part of my last year organizing MEU Vienna 2020 and participating in different MEUs and meeting a lot of wonderful people. And I am glad to have made those connections and experiences.
And I'm glad to have you here today. So thank you very much, Isabel. Next, Valeria, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Ciao everyone, how are you? My name is Valeria and I am the president of Beta Italia. And right now I'm looking for a job since I graduated last year in July. And I'm involved in MEU. Right now I am the supervisor of Rome Model European Union 2020. And I am the former DG of Milan Model European Union twice.
Great. And last but not least, we also have Yogan. If you could just introduce yourself, it'd be great.
Thank you, Reese. So basically, I'm Yogam. I'm from Singapore, but I'm studying in Greece. I am a PhD candidate for political science in one of the universities here. And I'm the president for Beta Greece and also one of the people who founded Beta Greece with 4 other very passionate Greeks. And we have set up MEU Athens, the first edition last year. And this year, I'm also the Director General for the second edition.
Thank you very much. So thank you once again for all of you for joining. And to all of you watching at home, as you've heard, we've got many experiences between us of organizing Model European Union conferences. So if you have any questions while you're watching this, feel free to comment in our YouTube live comment stream and we'll try and make sure that we answer them whenever possible. But for those of you watching who maybe are not sure what a Model European Union is, I think it's a good idea we start there with the concept. So Gary, if you wouldn't mind just explaining in a nutshell what a Model European Union is, it would be appreciated.
Yeah, so I think the nutshell actually has 2 parts, and there's one which is quite a literal sense of what an MEU is, and then I think there's maybe another aspect of what is kind of why we do the MEU as well. So yeah, and in the literal sense, the MEU is a simulation of European decision making. So we run training that leads into an actual simulation in which participants take a role of an MEP or a commission, a council minister, or of a journalist or lobbyist. It depends on the conference scale. Some do less, some do more. But at its core is the idea that for 3 days, these participants will take on these roles and actually simulate the co-decision process of the EU, which is the national governments on one side is the council and the directly elected European Parliament and all of the political factions within that. On a kind of more wider sense, I think on the why is that for many people, they're looking for different things out of it. It's maybe to get friendships, to have experiences. It may be to gain a professional understanding of how these institutions work. For me, particularly in my role at MEU Scotland, Beta Scotland over the last 3 or 4 years, I always believed that it was also about empowering people to understand how the institutions work so that they can see the benefits and the downsides. And because, as I'd always said at Beta Scotland, we are not necessarily saying that the EU as it is perfect, and we're actually showing the downsides as well as the positives. So it's about empowering people to be active in citizenship, but also for people who want to pursue careers or interests in the European sphere. There's a huge aspect on the social side, on the coming together of different cultures and nationalities and sharing in that. So in general, it's a representation of both European politics, but also the social dynamics which connect them all.
Yeah, for sure. Personally, I would be inclined to agree with that. I know that for me, it was pretty intimidating when I first saw kind of Model European Union. And I was, I think, a bit kind of thinking, this isn't my thing. Surely this isn't for people like me. But then, you know, once I went to it, I really had a life-changing experience. And I think maybe you can relate too. So I'm glad to hear that. And of course, there are many MEU conferences. And Valeria, I believe that some of the latest and the newest conferences on the circuit are in Italy. So I don't know if you'd perhaps like to give an idea, because MEUs can change over time. I don't know how things began with MEU Milan and MEU Rome, and if they've changed at all over time. I don't know if you'd like to speak about that.
Well, it depends on the edition, because, for example, MEU Milan last year was really different from the first edition. And, you know, organizing an MEU, it's very funny, but difficult in a way. And it depends on how much budget you have, let's say that. And last year, well, we have not enough budget. And, you know, social events and other things, we have to pay attention on that. And that's it. It depends also how you organize it. For example, our first edition, it's something new, also for the institution you are collaborating with. And, you know, because it's a new thing, there are some helps from them. But a second edition is more difficult, even though you have a collaboration. But it depends on how you organize. Considering the role model European Union, it was our first edition. Now we are working on the second edition, but we have a huge problem, which is called COVID-19. And well, it affects a lot of MEUs. I know also MEU Strasbourg, but it depends on how you face the problem. So that's it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's affected quite a lot of the conferences of people here in the call. Model European in Strasbourg 2020 has been postponed. And another conference, which was unfortunately postponed too, was MEU Netherlands 2020. So Casper, I don't know how it was for you. It must be very, very difficult for you, the organizers, and people wishing to attend, participants themselves, to deal with a postponement of a conference, because we're very invested in it. So how was that for you and everyone involved with MEU Netherlands?
It was difficult, but it was also very clearly the only thing we could do. For our MEU was planned in July, and after a time, the Dutch government announced that no big events will be allowed for July. So that was one thing that, of course, caused that we cancelled it. Although now they've changed the rules again, so theoretically we could have even organized now. But a way bigger problem for us is that we have two team members who are not from the EU. We have two Armenian team members. And our expectations were that especially travel ban for non-EU people would exist for quite a long while. So that was why there was no alternative than to postponing it to next year. And it was a hard decision, and not a lot of fun to take, but it was the only option we had, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a real shame, but I can tell anybody, you know, watching and listening now, and I think Isabel would attest to it. MEU Netherlands 2019 was a joy to attend, and so I hope to have an opportunity to do so in the future, and I hope the people applying would do so. But I'm well aware that there are these kind of difficulties. Some people, I think, can be quite intimidated if they've never attended a model European Union. And that's why I'd like to ask all of you here, in your view, are there many hurdles towards, you know, taking part in an MEU? Do you think there's kind of, maybe it's the fear of public speaking, I don't know, but do you think there's anything that really inhibits people from wanting to apply to or take part in an MEU? And maybe you experienced something like that yourself.
Well, for MEU Netherlands, specifically last year, the big hurdle was the price, because the Netherlands is a cheap country. We didn't have a lot of funding, so that was a huge barrier last year. And the good thing for MEU Netherlands is that we did manage to secure a significant amount of funding for next year. So we can probably do it for free or for a really low price. So at least we hope we can take away that barrier. For the rest, since especially the MEU in the Netherlands is very new, our biggest problem is just finding people, making people aware that our MEU exists and that you can join.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do any of you kind of think there are any other barriers? Because certainly money is definitely a significant factor. But as I mentioned with me, I found that the image of it didn't seem like some place where I'd fit in. I felt like somehow this was really just for, people studying kind of, subjects, which I wasn't. I was a language student. I didn't know anything about the European Union. So I don't know if any of you feel like there are other, obstacles or hurdles as well. Gary, I see you raising your hand.
Yes, I think it's a really important point. A lot of the people that I've encountered who we convinced to apply for the MEUs that we were running in Scotland assumed that you could only attend something like this if you were studying political science, and even then if you were someone who was confident at speaking or someone who had a real grasp on how the EU works. And actually I think it's something that is still a big challenge for us in terms of how we market ourselves and how we operate. There are, as you said, Rhys, so many number of MEUs, and some of them, such as Strasbourg, may be the ones which are targeted towards people who have a higher level of engagement in that topic. But there are also ones which I kind of like to call as kind of grassroots MEUs, which are on more of the periphery of Europe, like MEU Scotland. And our hope is that we're actually trying to reach new people, because that's the whole point of the concept is we're looking to introduce European politics to people. So you don't have to have that high level of study background of European politics. But that's a challenge for us to highlight how you can actually learn about Europe through this process, through our pre-conference training, the actual training day that we have for most MEUs, which is usually quite developed. So we've had some successes in this area, but there's still a lot more work to do.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. And Andrea, I'll come to you next.
Thank you. Well, I have seen in practice over the past years that in most MEUs, we have found a tendency towards elitism because of the costs, usually. I mean, this is, I think, one of the biggest problems that are relevant for MEU world, the cost, the high costs. And, it's very difficult for people in certain parts of Europe to attend such events, even though we are trying to be as inclusive as possible. Because no one can actually afford, I don't know, a €200 participation fee plus transportation and sometimes even accommodation because it might not be covered. And we tend to offer these places at MEUs to participants that come from maybe countries which have, a bigger economy than others, and also to participants that come from not necessarily, I'm not saying better families or more richer families, but people that can afford these kind of things. That's why in MEU Yash we have tried over the past years, mostly in the past 2 editions, to include everything for a sum for €25, because we believe that these projects should be for everyone, regardless of where they come from, what they do, regardless of the background in every single aspect. So I think it should be a good occasion for organizers to rethink how they find the budget, how they look at funds, because, for example, Erasmus is tricky. I mean, sure, you get the money, but you get the money on paper because the participants still have to pay for everything before they get refunded. And still, how can you find a solution for those people that cannot afford it? So I think it should be a good question for everyone, us organizers, on how to actually organize them without putting burdens on our participants, since we actually want to broaden our horizons to everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to think everybody in this panel would 100% agree with that. I think in principle, that's definitely the way to go. Speaking with Model European Union Strasbourg, for example, one thing we strive to do over the years, because we recognize it can be very expensive, unfortunately, to travel to Strasbourg for many people and to participate. We do have our social fund, and I was very privileged in my year to get some money from that in order to attend it. But of course, it's very difficult, and it's a very, unfortunately, finances are an inevitable aspect of organizing a conference. Valeria, you wanted to say something, so I'll come to you next.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with most of you about the money thing. For the first edition, for example, of Milan, MEU Milan, we covered everything because we are lucky about it. And yeah, the participant just had to pay for the social, let's say that. So it depends on how much money you have. You can be lucky, you can be not. But you know, yeah, it's like, let's say, a privilege. But we want, as Beta Italia, we don't want it to be. We want to open this opportunity to everyone, not only for the faculties, for example, the political one or the law one, but also for other one. That's why we try also about the directive to choose directives that can be debates among everyone. So just another example, on the first edition, we have a participant who was studying the reptiles, so the snakes and other things like that. And she was amazed about that. So, and she come back on the next edition of MEU Milan.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example. And yeah, I definitely agree. Yes, so sorry, Gary, I do see your hand there, but I'd like to try and kind of touch upon something because there has been a question on our YouTube regarding future dates, and we really welcome any questions. If there's anything you'd like, please do comment on the live stream. We'll try to answer it. But this whole subject of, you know, COVID-19, whether we like it or not, is having a big impact on our conferences. And Yogam, when it comes to MEU Athens, this is currently one of the conferences which is scheduled next in the MEU calendar. So I'm wondering, when it comes to the organizing team, how difficult has it been to deal with this uncertainty? And, you know, how confident are you moving ahead about MEU Athens 2020?
For my way of doing things, I would still say that we should still continue as per what we have planned. Because I think in the best case scenario, of course, we get to have the MEU in early October, but I would try not to postpone or delay something unless the situation really calls for it. So I would say that generally has taken a lot of reading and catching up with the news just to make sure that everything is in order. But I would say that work has to go on as per normal, and we just behave that, okay, the MEU is going to happen, and just to keep our spirits high also, because if you keep thinking that something's not going to happen, it's going to be really difficult to work towards. And of course, fingers crossed, we hope that things will be better after summer, but we have to see. But that's my preferred working style, and I think the Directorate of MEU Athens would agree also. Work has to keep continuing, and we just have to keep our positive mindset up. Yeah.
I mean, linked with that, do you think that it's been a bit more difficult, for example, when it comes to the logistics, trying to kind of, you know, for example, find a venue, find food and things for participants in these circumstances right now? It's very tricky, at least that's my impression. Have you also kind of found any difficulties there too?
Yeah, because like for those who have been for MEU Athens 2019, we kind of like to have everybody sitting together, having lunch, dinner, and things like that. Because to me, it's very important to sit together and eat. It's a very big bonding experience, but now we can't necessarily have that. The size of the conference is also going to be smaller because you can't have that many people in like a confined space for that many hours. Not just because it's the pandemic and things like that. It's because there are actual laws regarding this in the country, so we have to respect that. It's not that we want to have a smaller conference just for the sake of having this, but we really need everybody to be healthy when they return back to their countries. We have to make sure that we didn't actually put them into any form of danger in Athens. So we try to have to cut down on that responsibility also. So basically that has been at the top of my mind for logistics, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. We've gotten a question on YouTube, and it was, how is it that we've gotten this panel here today? So how is it that we're all speaking here? And I guess the short answer is that everybody here currently represents either the organization of an MEU or of a beta branch, and are also partners of Model European Union Strasbourg, and all of them have immense experience with organizing MEUs. We would love to have had more people, but unfortunately that's not the case because we can't have 20 people on a call to get very detailed answers. So I hope that answers your question, Ariadne, and keep on coming with the questions. So connected with what Joachim just said, this is towards you, Isabel. So unfortunately, yes, COVID-19 has been a bit tricky, and the timing was a bit awkward with, MEU Vienna. It took place shortly, if not at the same time, as many travel restrictions were announced. So, to what extent did these circumstances play on the mind of you as an organizing team? Because you've been working on it for the whole year. Was it tricky to deal with?
It certainly was a major factor to be taken into account by the organizing team. However, indeed, as you mentioned before, the timing was indeed tricky because the pandemic wasn't a thing in Europe at the time, and there was a situation in Italy, and the situation in Austria. The first cases in Austria appeared 3 days before our conference, and they were in a confined space in a ski resort somewhere in the mountains. And then we only found out about the first case in Vienna exactly in the night of the opening ceremony. We were in contact, we were in permanent contact with the ministry, and of course we did try to take extra measures. Luckily, we didn't have to take such radical measures as to try to find a different space or try to find a way to separate people, which was great because we also managed to carry our socials and everything as planned. But indeed, it was a major factor that worried us as the organizing team, and we did have to stress that on our participants daily and to remind them daily about some extra hygiene. But those were more or less basic hygiene measures that we maybe had to pay more attention to at the time, and it wasn't a big issue in Vienna. So luckily we were happy not to have our conference in a time where the pandemic, the outbreak was at the fullest, but when it was just beginning. But how indeed for personally, and I'm sure that the team would agree with me, we were indeed worried for the following 2 weeks after the conference, till we knew that everything is fine and everybody got home safe and that nobody was in danger, because we did remind them every day to let us know and that we would deal with symptoms. So of course there was also bronchitis going around at the time, and it was also kind of scary that you don't know we had to be in contact permanently with the ministry and to make a difference between the symptoms.
Yeah, makes sense. And I have to say that at least I remember being, I think, introduced to Turkish cologne, I believe, was being used during certain breaks. It was very effective though. So thank you very much for all the measures you did adopt. And I'd like to emphasize that COVID-19 has not just impacted MEU Vienna, it's impacted the organization of all the MEUs of people currently in this call. And we've received, I think, a number of questions, Andrea, from people related, either participants or organizers with MEU Yash. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to read one out for you. So somebody who asked it anonymously said that it was a unique experience to attend MEU Yash, and it hit before COVID-19 hit rather, and to see how organizers dealt with the emergency situation in Romania and how they swiftly implemented safety measures. How was it behind the scenes, and how did you pull it off?
Thank you, Reese. Indeed, as you said, and as the participants said, MEU Yash was the last conference organized in Europe before the big hit of COVID-19 pandemic. I have to say it was one of the most challenging experiences ever. Each day of MEU Yash felt like 1 week long MEU, and I think everyone here understands and knows how it is, how you feel after 1 week of debating and engaging in MEU activity. I mean, you are literally exhausted. So you imagine doing this for every single day. Well, MEUs are about the participants. So we tried our best to make sure that we kept them safe. A word of advice for fellow MEU organizers that have in mind organizing MEUs in the following months: don't underestimate the challenges that the pandemic brings. It's a whole new level of responsibility and effort that no one has ever dealt with before. I mean, sure, we are trying and we are thinking that it's a good opportunity to organize an MEU now, but it can be really risky. I mean, it's not, nowadays, it's not just a nice event where people just attend to debate certain topics. We are actually responsible for people's lives, not only the participants nor the organizers, but everyone that they keep in contact with after the event. How I pulled it off, you ask? Well, I have to be really honest. We learned a lot more about responsibilities. I mean, in those days, not only we were organizers, but we became overnight cleaning personnel, for disinfecting pretty much everything. I mean, every centimeter of the working space has been desanitized, has been sanitized and cleaned just to prevent the risk of infection. We have become nurses because we had to keep a close look to the symptoms of the participants, if any showed any symptom at all. I mean, we even made sure that people were rested, so we couldn't have this possibility of, I don't know, taking a symptom for COVID-19 when it was just a flu or just participants being tired. And the last most relevant thing was we became psychologists, because at that time, the panic around Europe was rising. Everyone was checking their phones, their news to see the number of cases growing bigger and bigger with every hour. Not only in cases of infections, but deaths as well. So everyone was really interested in the topic, and they were panicked because they took every symptom they had. Even if they coughed once, they thought automatically that they had COVID-19. So, we were trying to calm participants, to calm organizers as well among each other. It was really important for us to stick together and to make sure that we have the safest place ever. We took lots of measures, not only sanitizing everything and providing all the hygiene products to all the participants at all times, but we actually took lots of measures before the conference, such as we knew every single information about the traveling details of these participants in the past 2 weeks, because we needed to know exactly where they have been, or whether they have been in a country of risk, in an area of risk, because these questions have been asked by the authorities. We were supervised at all times by the Romanian Health Department, by the university administration, also our partners that were always checking if everything was going on all right. And we also had a medical department from the university checking with us at all times. I mean, I had, as DG, I had the doctor on speed dial, just in case something happened. As I said, for the mere symptom, I had to make a call just in case to keep everyone safe. So, we try to make sure that everything was just fine, at least to offer the participant a safe place, knowing that after MEU Yash, because MEU Yash was actually the beginning, it happened during the beginning of the COVID-19 outburst. And we knew that it was going to be a few weeks, if not more, of uncertain times. But we knew that people were going back at homes to stay isolated, to stay socially distant in order not to get infected. So we tried to balance a bit everything. Not only we organized everything good, or at least we tried from the content perspective, but we also managed to find a way to give people a bit more freedom when they need it. That's why we changed the last day. We turned it into a social event overall. We just went outside to have a barbecue, to stay outside, not inside, because it was the last day for most of us that we would go out for a long time.
So, I mean, that sounds wonderful to me. So
yeah, and we had to make sure that people didn't lose focus, not only on MEU, but about everything that was around them. And I have to say that from the feedback that we received from the participants, everyone, all the organizers, Olga, Bianca, Catalina, Cesar, and so on, they did an amazing job at everything, and no one actually noticed the changes, and everyone was very responsible.
Then I'm really glad to hear
awesome.
that, because
Yeah.
it's always tricky when you're organizing to kind of know really the reaction from participants. So I'm really glad to hear everybody had a wonderful time in such difficult circumstances.
It was a bit more than this.
Yeah, no, I mean, to say the least, indeed. I'm feel at MU Model European Union Strasbourg, of course, we had a different type of disruption. We weren't, right there like MU Vienna and MU Iași. It's very different circumstances. So thank you for your comprehensive answer. And it sounds to me like your participants were lucky.
Yeah, we had a couple of participants that were supposed to come to Strasbourg right after Iași. And I know that it was very difficult because when Strasbourg was cancelled and we couldn't, I mean, nothing was coming back from, and the COVID-19 outburst was ongoing. So, I know it was a very difficult period, and I just know that now everyone is safe. I mean,
indeed, I was going to say the same thing. And of course, with MEUs being postponed, it still will take place. We're looking forward to finally seeing our participants in person too. And I'd like to pick up on something which I think we've subtly picked up on here and touched upon, which is this balance, the word which Andrea mentioned. And it was very interesting, one of the questions we got prior to this call from somebody online, and they stated, and I quote, I feel the model European Union concept is undergoing an identity crisis, with two sides having quite different approaches. One is more focused on bringing people together with a strong emphasis on social events, and the other side focuses more on professionalism with perhaps less relevance for social events. So their question is, do you believe COVID-19 will be an opportunity to reconsider this concept, to try and find the balance? Gary, if it's okay, I'd like to come with you to you for this question, because I do remember MU Scotland having a very important emphasis on the social side. So I don't know how you feel about that question.
Sure. Just very briefly as well to say what you were saying earlier about the accessibility of the conference and in the sense of the social fund that was provided at Strasbourg. This was really important for me as a participant, coming from an economically disadvantaged background. It was the social fund that enabled me to get involved in this whole network and to do all those activities. So I think those kind of provisions are really great and important. Just on this point as well, the main thing for us is that it's a mixture of both. We want to give people the skills and experiences on the professional side of the conference. We want to equip young people with an understanding of how the institutions work, and to try and embed within our conference development of soft skills like negotiating and public speaking, and even just studying text, etc. But the social aspect is a really important part of it, and we broke that down into kind of like 3 areas. It's about promoting the sharing of our unique and different cultures. It's about unwinding as well. So we have a number of social activities which just allow people to be able to meet and speak to, and hang out together. And then we're quite keen to have a focus on cultural enrichment as well. So we actually have a whole day at MEU Scotland after the conference is concluded, because one of the things I identified as well was that at the end of an MEU, you hand out certificates and then it kind of feels like it just reaches an abrupt end. And we wanted to create something which would try to mobilise all of the ideas and thoughts that we've had in the conference, or all the experiences, and try to put that towards something. So we do a day trip to Edinburgh, to the Scottish National Parliament, and also visit things like the museums and the castle, etc. And so we think that those kind of cultural activities keep it from being just about the politics and actually being about the European citizenship. I think it's something that differentiates the MEU concept, and perhaps from other similar concepts as like an MUN, for example. When you're going to an MUN, and I should say I've never been to one, but from what I understand is it's more about the process, and it's actually quite professional. It's, when you come to an MEU, you're kind of reflecting something which the UN doesn't have. We don't have a UN citizenship, but we do have a European citizenship. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a huge part of the
Yeah, I definitely I like the way you kind of worded that, Gary, because at the same time, it has to be emphasized, MEUs are open to all participants, from anywhere in the world, and they don't have to be, in the EU. And we have, many people from around the world attending a Model European Union. It is, of course, there's something special, and I know that I've had, many great memories, and I think it has been a celebration for me sometimes of European Union citizenship, quite pointedly for us, Gary, in the case of, unfortunately, Brexit. So that definitely rang true.
Even in that situation, we might have, for example, Americans that come, but they're kind of interested in Europe, not just as an economic entity. It tends to have an interest in European culture and in the kind of the stuff that is beyond the legal texts, the actual culture and the citizenship aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And Casper or Jürgen, if you'd like to add, I'll come to you. Sorry.
So when you mentioned something about balance, I think it's actually good not to have this balance, because that's what makes every MEU different. And we go to different MEUs for different things. So if you go to MEU Scotland, the socials were great. Then you go to MEU Strasbourg, it's a different experience. So I think that is what sets us apart. And I think it's very good for participants to get a little bit of not only the country's experience, but the organizers' take on what exactly MEU simulation is. And I would say that it's not always a good thing to have balance in this case. Maybe it's good to have a little bit of imbalance, and we can definitely enjoy it. So I would say to embrace this imbalance and enjoy it, basically. You will get something from every MEU that you've been part of.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I, of course, as I mentioned, I had the joy of attending MEU Athens 2019 last year, and it was wonderful. And also MEU Netherlands, Casper. And I wanted to come with you to that, because we're currently talking about socials. And I remember, I think MEU Netherlands is the only time I've been to multiple cities, apart from the day trip in MEU Scotland. But we had socials really around kind of, for me, Netherlands. I'd never seen anything of Netherlands before. And I'd been to, I think, 4 different cities in my time there. So was this important to you when you were designing your conference?
Well, it's also more about the location where we organize it, or at least organized the last year, because we did it in, personally, we don't really like to organize in Amsterdam for a lot of reasons, costs, logistics, etc. And in the region around Delft, where I study, where we had first edition, you have a lot of really nice cities. You have The Hague close there, you have Rotterdam close there, you have Leiden there. And we thought it was really important to show something of the country with good and relatively affordable public transport there. It's really nice that you can show more of the country. That's also why we branded like MEU Netherlands, not MEU Delft or MEU The Hague. Because one of the big parts of MEUs is getting to know the country. And I also really quickly want to link that to the discussion before on the balance between socials and content. I think it's good that that is different between simulations, also because it often reflects on countries' cultures. And you can see that all the different MEUs are also shaped by the cultures of the organizing teams that lead them.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I hope it's okay with you all. So previously, we were scheduled to finish around now, but as we were delayed by 15 minutes, I hope it's okay with you all if we continue for another 15 minutes. Although if somebody does have to leave, then just let us know, and thank you very much for your time. And we do have a couple of very interesting questions that we got on our YouTube comments, so keep them coming if you like. And one of them regards kind of future preparation. And if this is fine, Valeria and Isabel, I'd welcome a response from you in particular. So the pandemic game, I quote, sorry, the pandemic game gave some extra preparation time to inexperienced MEU participants like myself. If I may ask, based on your experience, how could one like me best take advantage of the extra time given? So I don't know if you get the gist of the question, but if Valeria or Isabel, if either of you or both of you would like to comment. I see Isabel nodding, so I'll come to you first. Or was that a no?
Yeah, no, it's fine, it's fine. Well, it is not the case with MEU Vienna, but I know that many other MEUs are postponed, which does indeed give an extra time for preparation. the best advice that I can give to anyone who has not participated yet into an MEU is to actually let themselves led by the team. Because in this time, if you as a participant have extra time for preparation, the team also has extra time to explain you better. And I know I have heard of all of the teams that had to postpone their MEUs, that they are putting in extra efforts into bringing new ways and into opening new channels of communication with participants. So this is a general advice that I know it is not taken into account seriously every time, also in a normal context of an MEU, because the teams work very, very hard to provide content guides and to provide explanations on the topics most of the times. And it is the case that those explanations and those helping materials are designed in such a way by the team so that they are almost everything that you need to be prepared for a conference. So please don't be afraid that you would need to do something extra that you will not know about, because it is the case for many. And please don't be afraid to ask the team if you do have some concerns. But if you do follow their page, and if you do open your emails that you're going to receive afterwards, you certainly are going to get all the materials that you need to prepare yourself for this. I think that MEUs in general are very inclusive. So this is because you were also mentioning the hurdles that newcomers might experience before applying to an MEU. And we did have one of these questions, we did receive this on one of our accounts about public speaking, and many people are afraid of public speaking. One thing that I would like to emphasize is the fact that most of us are not native English speakers. Most of us don't have experience in working with European law or within European politics. Some of us are students that study these subjects and some not, but actually there is a very inclusive and very harmonic environment in all MEUs. So you can manage to take your time to speak, and the only thing that it is there to do for you is to dare to apply, to dare to come, and when you come, to dare to speak. But for anything else, the team would lead you.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you say, Isabel. I think pretty much all of it. And I have to say, from the perspective of somebody involved with Model European Union Strasbourg, it's something I'm really most passionate and proud about with our conference. And we're so privileged to be in the European Parliament, to have the facilities for interpreting. And we do make use of that and have at least 8 languages at our conference. So people can practice their English if they wish, but they can also, in the case of many participants, speak their own language. Unfortunately, that's not possible wherever, and it requires a lot of effort and coordination and a venue which can have it. But I'm very, very happy that we have that every year, and I feel so privileged. Valeria, to come back to you as well, I don't know if you also have any advice or if there's anything you'd like to add to what Isabel said.
I just want to add, because I agree with Isabel said mostly. Well, and the fact is that the team is here to help you, and you have not to be afraid, because you will learn something from your experience. So also the experienced people learn something on this kind of events, because everyone learns something. Also me, that I'm organized. So, yeah, just asking, or don't be afraid to do that, because we have time right now, so just use it.
A question for you, Valeria, do you remember the first time that you attended an MEU, or I assume you've participated in at least one in the past. Do you remember how you felt before that? Was it something which was quite nerve-wracking for you personally?
Wow, now I'm feeling very old. No. Well, my first political experience, in a sense of that, was in 2016 in Rome, but it wasn't an MEU. My first MEU was in Brussels in 2017, but my first experience was in Rome on MEUN, and I felt like, oh my God, it's something new. I don't know what is it, but I want to take to participate. I want to face the problem, because I am a very introvert person, but right now not. And I want to face the problem of public speaking, and also my English, because we are not the native speaker. And I would like to, face those problems. And yes, I took part into this event, and I was fascinating. So I was afraid, yeah, but I was also fascinating about that. So I took it as an adventure, let's say that. So I met also new friends, new people from all over the world. And yes, I fell in love with those kind of simulation. So
Yeah.
I wrote also in Italy one.
And of course, you're here today, and I know that, yeah, everything has been going great with Beta Italy. So I'm really glad to hear how everything, worked out. And there's something I'd like to pick up on what you said there, but just something I'd like to also add to what Isabel said earlier. Of course, being a native speaker of English myself, and I don't know how it was for Gary, either, but when it comes to kind of like public speaking, even for me, it was nerve-wracking. Like, I remember the first time I had to make a speech, and I was just shaking, really. And it actually went horribly wrong because I started speaking about completely the wrong topic. I forgot which topic we were talking about. I was that nervous. So, even for, I think, anybody at all, it's very kind of nervous. But at the same time, once you go through that first experience, you realize we're all the same, really. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, how much experience you have, what your profession is, what your background is. It's really about, having a learning, enjoyable experience with each other and together, and to grow with one another. So, if you're nervous out there, like I was, don't worry. It's not a big deal. And I think actually there might be a possibility in the future. Keep an eye out on digital MEU sessions. We might have something about public speaking lined up. But Gary, I see your hand up. So I'll come to you, but then I'm going to change the topic for our final 10 minutes. So
I'll keep it very brief. Just as soon as you asked about being a native speaker, something which I actually gained a lot out of my first MEU was learning how to speak European English. And having a Scottish accent, even though my Scottish accent isn't even that pronounced, I'm told. My first MEU, the interpreters at Strasbourg at the start were really looking so confused with each other, and I learned through these years how to speak at a much more slower and clearer basis. And then just on the actual public speaking side of things as well, at this time in my life, I was quite nervous about doing things like public speaking, whereas now I don't have any concerns about doing that, and that is in large part thanks to MEUs.
Yeah, and actually from my experience, I can say too, I think, 4 of you here today who have been director generals of conferences I have attended, I would like to, think that my public speaking skills now, where I'm speaking without really any nerves right now, is thanks in part to you. So, thank you for all the efforts each of you are doing. And I hope that you continue organizing MEUs in the near future too. So we've got a question from Dalma on our YouTube. And I'd like, Yogam, I think this might be relevant to you. It says, can we expect maybe some COVID-19 related topics to be discussed during future conferences? Yeah, what do you think?
Yes, so basically because of this, I think the content team and the head of content, they have actually decided to have the regulation on clinical trials. So I think it's actually very relevant, and hopefully if the MEU actually goes on, it will be very relevant, and we can bring on the topic of COVID-19 also. And I think this is something that actually makes MEU simulations very knowledgeable, regardless of the background that you're actually coming from. It's actually nice to have different people from different backgrounds to bring a diversity of opinions. And really doesn't matter if you're studying politics or economics. You don't even have to have any form of health or medical background or something like this, because you're going to come to an MEU, you're going to learn. And that is something that is very good, because you have other topics that you discuss, but when you're discussing a topic that is close to you and has affected everyone, I think that's something that is very important for MEUs itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear, and I'm sure that that will be the case with other conferences. I see Casper too, you have your hands up. What's up?
Yeah, also in response to Damat's question, with MEU Netherlands, we are looking into online mini MEUs and online activities. We're in the preparation phase for that, but if that becomes a thing, then very likely we also will be taking COVID-related topics. So if people are interested in that, give our Facebook page a like to stay up to date with that.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, we'll make sure at the end that everybody can state their Facebook page, so the people listening, if they wish, can also follow them for updates. And I do think that there probably will be more conferences in the future, given the sheer scale of what we're experiencing right now. I think it's inevitable that in some way, shape, or form, it does influence, Model European Union in the short term over the months to come. So I'd like to switch to one final topic, which for me is really important, and we've already touched upon it. It's to do with the social side. So with me during COVID-19, I've been in Spain. I've been pretty much locked in my apartment for 2 months. And to be frank, what got me through it was actually discussions with many of the friends who I'd met in Model European Union. So this is an open question to all of you, but I'd like to know if you had a similar experience, and how important has the friendships and also the network you've made through Model European Union been to you personally? I don't know if anybody would like to begin there. I see Gary, so I'll come towards you, and then after, anybody can comment.
Well, I suppose I'll say on the first instance a bit of self-promotion for Beta Europe. We actually are doing digital meetups on a fortnightly basis. So we've had quite a lot of success with that, where we've had our member branches and member individuals who have been able to socialise and share a drink and have a conversation. So we will be advertising the next one of those coming up soon as well. In terms of the personal side as well, like I've made so many great friends through this network, even actually met my current partner as well through MEUs. So she's definitely been like the most important communication for me like throughout this crisis. But it's just been really great to feel that connection with people across borders. For the first time in a long time, we're seeing a Europe which is actually a bit closed off. And it feels kind of good to be able to keep in contact with people across those physical borders and to have a sense of solidarity across Europe during this time, and to get a sense of how those challenges are playing out at a local level, so that can kind of inform my own understanding of how the crisis is developing on a more international scale. So that's that whole social side is really fantastic, and we as Beta Europe will continue to do as much as we can to try and foster those social connections, as I say, through our digital meetups and further ideas that are going to come out throughout this period.
That's great to hear, and I hope many watchers or viewers rather, if they're not already, that they do follow Beta Europe on Facebook for more updates. Valeria, I noticed you had your hand up.
Yeah, a part of the virtual meeting by Beta Europe and our long-lasting meetings with Beta Europe. Sorry, Gary, I'm joking. But apart from that, well, we were locked down for 2 months in Italy. So it was very nice to hear a familiar voice, from a screen of a phone or on the computer. So yeah, the network, the friends you made into those events are important. So yeah, it was that.
Yeah, I my heart goes out to you, and I hope everything is going well with you, your friends, and everybody with Beta Italy. It definitely has been difficult. Andrea, I don't know if you would like to comment at all. Have you? Because I'm aware that you've been highly involved with MEUs for multiple years. You must have developed a network, and how important has that been to you?
Indeed, in MEUs, we managed to create over the past 4 years an MEU alumni group where we share lots of opportunities as much as possible. So, everyone can travel, can have the opportunities that we always find in MEUs by just talking to one another and finding about stuff happening around the world. Unfortunately, in the past months, of course, everyone has been isolated. So we have tried to not only take a break a bit, not to remind them constantly about what is happening outside, but to find out, I don't know, maybe try a more positive way. I know that members of the organizing team are right now very involved, not only with exams, because most of them are students and starting tomorrow they have exams, but also organizing lots of projects by the Law Students Association. Mostly are going to be online, but you know, everyone has been trying to get involved somehow, and not just to stay and watch and learn and just wait for the pandemic to be over, but to actually try to do something with this time. Sure, we managed to keep in touch. It was, I noticed that everyone was very, how to say, they were really stressed about the entire situation. So I think that just keeping company when we need it, because in isolation, most of us just needed this company. I think we managed. I mean, I personally talked to most of the participants from MEU Yash. Well, this year mostly because I needed to check on them to see how they are doing, if they developed any symptoms and so on. And I've done that for around a month after, not only 2 weeks, because you know symptoms can develop later or as well. I don't know, it's been very difficult for everyone, but I think that now, mostly with the relaxation of the measures, we're going back. And to be honest, I cannot wait to go out and meet the organizers, because we already have in plan some projects starting in autumn in Romania. We already discussed about some in the past weeks, but you know, it's one thing to organize and to talk over Zoom or over other social media platforms. It's another thing to organize face to face. It's a whole different thing.
I couldn't agree with you more, and fingers crossed that we can all meet face to face soon and return to really experiencing the MEU Model European Union in person that we all have enjoyed and treasured. So that more or less concludes our time, but just before we close, I'd like to give each of you perhaps the opportunity to make just a very brief remark, if you wish, and also what are you going to be doing? How can people follow you, bearing in mind that there's going to be a lot of people who perhaps have never attended a Model European Union before. Maybe they live near you and they're interested. So where should they go if they want to hear about any of your activities? Jürgen, if you'd like to begin.
Yes, okay. So for us, we actually have MEU Athens, Model European Union Athens Facebook page. We have Beta Greece Facebook page and Instagram, and we are getting quite active on it because the MEU is actually coming up in a number of months. So if you could follow that, that would be nice also. And generally, you can follow MEU Universe, and that's a good place to actually get up to date with all the other MEUs, because every MEU is different and it's important to support every MEU. Yeah.
Definitely agree. Casper, how about you?
For us, it's best for people to follow the MEU Netherlands page. And if they have any questions about MEUs or want to join an MEU, they can always send a message to the page. Alternatively, people can also add me on LinkedIn, send me a question or whatever in their connection request if they want to discuss something more.
Of course, if you haven't already noticed, everybody watching, we do have our names in brackets and also the organization, so you can look for us. Isabel?
Yeah, so you can find us on Model European Union Vienna page. We're at MEU Vienna on Instagram. We are on Twitter, or we are everywhere, but you find us under the name MEU Vienna or Model European Union Vienna anywhere. And I would encourage everyone who, even though it might seem overwhelming or scary in the beginning, I do encourage everyone to participate, because it is a unique experience and we have learned tremendously through this. And it was something that we wanted to give back, and I am sure that participants will grasp that and will grasp the fact that everybody has a place in MEUs. For anybody who is actually interested in to also work a little bit, we're going to post our open calls for team soon. So keep an eye on us if you want to work with us, if you dare to work with us. I think it's going to be fun. Yes.
Very well advertised, Isabel. Gary, how about you?
Sure. For Beta Europe, you can find us on our website, which is beta-europe.org. On that website, we'll have a list of the upcoming MEUs and our member branches, so that you can find all of the different MEUs which are part of our network. And we also have a Facebook group for members of Beta Europe as well. So please seek that out and join us if you're not actually a member as well. In terms of what we'll be doing next is we're obviously continuing to support branches as much as we can with their developments. We have also been deciding our own processes because we have a General Assembly coming up next month in which we will be electing our new leadership for the first time online. So through that last number of weeks, we've been negotiating and identifying a way in which we can do these negotiations, elections, debates. And so from that experience, we might actually be able to learn some ideas on how we can do a kind of online MEU concept, or support at least some aspects of that. So yeah, just as a final note, I'd like to thank everyone for this seminar tonight, and also to wish you all the very best. And if any of our members or any of our member branches need any assistance or want to discuss any aspect of the current crisis and activities that we can be working on, feel free to get in touch with the management board.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. Valeria?
Well, guys, if you love pizza and spaghetti, Beta Italia, it's open for you. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram, Beta Italia, or you can follow our MEUs, Model European Union Milan and Model European Union Rome. You can find them also on Instagram. Enjoy. Perfect. And also follow the other MEUs, because as Jogam said, every MEU is different, even though, you know, balance is different. Follow the other MEUs because we need support from you guys.
And Andrea?
Thank you. Well, we are quite active on Facebook mostly, but we are also on Instagram. So anyone can find us on these two social media pages. Also, Law Student Association can be reached at any time, because they are actually the main organizers, and they can answer all the questions, as well as Europe Direct. Yes, I mean, they are always involved. I have to say, because I caught an idea from the speakers in the previous questions about public speaking. I mean, no one is born a public speaker or a professional public speaker. This is something that we learned. I mean, not even some MEPs have good public speaking skills. So try to come to an MEU, regardless of where it is, in what country. It's a good way of building character. It's a good way to build skills, and definitely the culture. And that's what each of us is offering here. Yeah, it's been really great to get to talk to everyone. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of the meetings that are going to probably happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. So thank you all once again for joining and for giving us all your time, and thank you to all the viewers at home who've watched this. I hope it's been fun, informative, and hopefully give you insights into Model European Union. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of quite a few digital MEU sessions. The next one will be regarding civil society. So if you're curious about that, make sure to follow Model European Union Strasbourg on Facebook or Instagram for all the latest news and information. And the last thing from me, MEUs are a wonderful, wonderful experience. You will be challenged, but you will laugh. You will really have so many wonderful moments to cherish, make friendships that could change your life. If you haven't given it a go, do consider it. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you at a Model European Union in the future. Bye.